What's up, everybody? Hey, thank you for joining me here at the Real ResQ Podcast. We are part of Vertical Magazine's Helicast Podcast Network. We're alongside the Hangar Z Podcast, the Helicopter Podcast, and the Vertical MRO Podcasts. We have more podcasts coming on this platform, so go check out verticalhelicast.com to check out all of these amazing platforms. Now, I'd like to say thank you to the sponsors of this specific episode. Axness, their mission, wireless intercom. Get in touch with them today at axness.com. Ready Swimmer, equipping you to serve. Our mission is to make you ready. Contact us today at readyswimmer.com. The Real ResQ Store, where we've got new designs coming all the time. Go check out the realresqstore.com to help support this podcast. Now, coming up next in this episode, we are joined by a guy whose wife, Penny, refers to him as a war hero, and I could not agree more. His story that he shares with us was 20 years ago, and it still brings chills down my spine when I hear it. Absolutely amazing. We didn't end it there, though. We talked about a couple other ones that he was involved with throughout his time being a pilot with the United States Air Force. So please welcome our next guest, Mr. Jeff Peterson, call sign Spanky. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. I have a very unique and I'm excited about our next guest. He's got some amazing stories. He's a pilot with the United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Spanky Peterson. What's up, Spanky?
Hey, Jason. How you doing, buddy?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. And I know some of the stories that we're about to talk about, and I'm very, very excited about it. And as a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to drop into one of them right now before we get into your background. Is that okay?
I'm fine, man. I'm here for you.
Oh, I almost want to give you like a heart emoji right now, but I'm not going to. Hug. Oh, hug. I appreciate it. That's awesome. So the first rescue that we're going to talk about, the reason I want to bring this up right away is that you've actually already talked about this on two separate podcasts. One of them specifically is the Marcus Luttrell Never Quit podcast. And then the other one was on Pick Up the Six podcast. You also were highlighted in a BBC documentary called Helicopter Wars, The Taliban Gambit. This is season 1, episode 1. A great episode, by the way. So if anybody hasn't seen that, go check that out. That was really well done. You were written up in multiple articles, which included the National Museum of United States Air Force briefing record. Some other ones were USA Rotor Heads. And then two of them, which I'm going to touch on, is the Washington Post and the Tucson Weekly. And the story is you were the pilot, one of the pilots in the crew members to go save Marcus Luttrell, a.k.a. the lone survivor, the Navy SEAL, the only one that survived on the mountain up in Afghanistan. That's you.
That was me.
Wow. 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 Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me read some of the articles, and then what I'd like you to do is, I know you've already told this story multiple times, and I'm just excited to have it here and for everybody to hear it on our side on this platform. So let's start with the Washington Post. Okay.
And this was part of, prior to the book coming out, was why we got above the fold on the Washington Post front cover. So it was part of the, you know how they go on USA Today or Today Show and stuff. It was a buildup of Marcus releasing his book, is what this. You could say prior to his book being released, the Washington Post did an article with, and he's in it, I'm in it, you know. with that reporter that we got to know real well. She came out to Tucson and everything.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, I'm excited to read this even more now. This is fantastic. And the name of the book you're referring to is The Lone Survivor, which was also a movie with Mark Wahlberg. So all about Marcus Luttrell and what happened there in Afghanistan. But all right, so here's the article. The sole survivor, a Navy SEAL injured and alone, was saved by Afghans' embrace and comrades' valor. The blood in his eyes almost blinded him, but the Navy SEAL could hear clattering above the trees in northeast Afghanistan rescue helicopters. "Hey," he pleaded silently, "I'm right here." Marcus Luttrell, a fierce 6'5" rancher son from Texas, lay in the dirt. His face was shredded, his nose broken, 3 vertebrae cracked from tumbling down a ravine. The Taliban rocket-propelled grenade had ripped off his pants and riddled him with shrapnel. As the helicopter approached, Luttrell, a petty officer first class, turned on his radio. Dirt clogged his throat, leaving him unable to speak. He could hear the pilot. "If you're out there, show yourself." It was June 2005. The United States had just suffered the worst loss of life in Afghanistan since the invasion in 2001. Taliban forces had attacked Luttrell's 4-man team on a remote ridge shortly after 1 p.m. on June 28th. By day's end, 19 Americans had died. Now, U.S. aircraft scored the hills for the survivor. Later down in the article is where you're mentioned. News of the crash. In southwestern Afghanistan, at the Kandahar airfield, Major Jeff Peterson, 39, sat in a briefing room with his feet up on the table, watching the puppet movie Team America, World Police. Great movie, by the way. Love that movie. Peterson was a full-time Air Force reservist from Arizona, known as Spanky because he resembles the scamp from Little Rascals. He was passing a 6-week stint with other reservists he called the Old Farts. In 3 days, he would head home, leaving behind the smell of burning sewage and the sound of giant camel spiders crunching mouse bones. Someone flipped on the television news. A Chinook had crashed up north. Peterson flew an H-60 for the 305th Rescue Squadron. Motto: anytime, anywhere. Their rescues had been minor. A few Afghan kids with blown up hand, a soldier with a blown up knee. Peterson recalled in an interview at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson. That was okay with him. 12 men, including Peterson's best friend, had died during training in a mid-air collision in 1998. The accident, he said, took the wind out of my life sails. He just wanted to serve and get back to his wife, Penny, and their 4 small boys. That's just a piece of the Washington Post. The next article, Tucson local media. This one is dated March 19th, 2014. A cloud of thick dust engulfed the helicopter as it made its descent to the ground. Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Peterson felt his muscles tense. Visibility was minimal, and his landing zone was unforgiving. If he moved the control stick too far to the left, he would crash into the rock face. Too far to the right, and he'd hit civilian mud huts. Pitch dark, dirt flying, and soft patter of rain. The landing was risky and seemed near impossible. Everything was in slow motion. It felt like an eternity, he said. You started thinking, please don't screw this up. You pray. You think about your family, wife, parents, kids. Wow, Spanky, that's just a couple news articles. Like, bring us into it, man. If you don't mind telling this story again, I will take as many details as you've got.
It was pretty intense. And yeah, as you mentioned, it was my first deployment in 2005 to Afghanistan. I did 3 deployments eventually. We were down in Kandahar. Things were kind of slow. We were just 72 on, 72 off, just typical standard alert profiles. We had 4 ships, 2 on, 2 off at all times. It was kind of slow. Talked to my wife every day. We'd stay up all night, sleep during the day, because that's when they'd need us. The Army had restrictions at the time, and they couldn't fly unless the illumination was above 20%. So we flew when it was scary dark, or the Army had a thing that they couldn't fly if the threat was high. So we flew when the threat was high. So scary, dark, and high threat. And we were like, awesome. We picked up some French special forces, picked up kids that had got hurt. It was a pretty slow deployment because at the time we were combat rescue. We're going to get guys behind enemy lines that got shot down. Well, no planes are getting shot down in Afghanistan. They got rocks and RPGs and small arms, So we were just helping out how we could. As you mentioned, we were just getting ready. Our replacements were coming in, and we were getting ready to go home. We had 4th of July plans, and then we got a call. I remember it was about noon. We'd already had breakfast, went to sleep. We'd heard a Chinook had crashed, but we had went to Intel, and they had no specifics. It was weird. There was no specifics. They couldn't find anything on their Intel channels. And a Predator went down on the Pakistan border. So when we woke up, we thought it might have something to do with the Chinook or the Pred. We hoped it wasn't going to put the PJs in to get sensitive material off of the Pred or something stupid.
Is that a big thing?
That there is stuff on there, and depending on how it went down, but that's not what we typically do. We didn't know.
Got it. Okay.
We got a call about noon, and I was dead asleep, and I heard over the radios, magic, magic, magic. And we have bricks. All the guys on alert had bricks. This week I was chalk 2. The week prior, or the alert period prior, I was flight lead. So thank heavens I was chalk 2, and my boss was in charge. And I remember thinking, somebody's going to frickin' get in trouble for saying the real world words over an open freak. We didn't say magic over the freak because it's hit the fan, get in here ASAP. So we get dressed, run into the talk. They said, go get a 3-day bag. You guys are going up to Bagram. Bagram's up in the northeastern Afghanistan. It's about a 4.5 hour flight. I remember we had to get gas en route at a FOB. And
FOB is a forward operating base.
Forward operating base, yeah.
Sorry, I gotta help a couple. That's right. I gotta help a couple people that listen that might not know.
So we get up there about dinner time. We'd been previously to Bagram, up east of Bagram in the off the Peck River Valley up by Camp Blessing, looking for some Marines, or a Marine that had fell in the river when it was flooding and raining, and their Humvee went in. He bailed, and we went up and down, searched for a couple days, unsuccessfully finding him. They found him 2 or 3 weeks later down almost to the Indian Ocean through Pakistan.
Oh, wow.
But the other guys, an RPG went right behind, in between the two ship. So we knew it wasn't a good area. And that's, just there in the, you see the documentaries, you see Asadabad, Jalalabad. It's just the hills up there where they owned it, and it was not good areas. So we get up to Bagram. Bagram, and they whisk us behind the big, literally black wall of the SOF compound, the Special Forces, where they lived. And we're Air Force Rescue. We play with them at times, but they had their own 160th aircraft. They're pretty much to themselves. And we're more the big blue, helping the Army and the Air Force out. They're doing all their night raids and whatever they do. So we get in there, everybody's got beards and shaggies, and we're just coming in, the Air Force guys. And
uniform finely pressed,
exactly,
shaven.
Good night's rest. So we get there, and I thought it was interesting. They had us all sign non-disclosure statements. There was 14 of us with maintenance, and we had to sign non-disclosure statements before they'd even tell us what they were going to talk about. And it was a classified op at the time called Operation Red Wings. And they started into saying how they were tracking bad guys, killing bad guys, whatever. They had a 4-man team out east, and they got compromised. We got a frantic call for help. We sent a 2-ship of Chinooks, the MH-60s from the 160th. MH-47s, I should say, sorry. And as they had 8 SEALs in the back, they were going to put in 16 more SEALs to make it a fair fight. There was upwards of 70 to 100 bad guys. And all they got was a frantic call from their squad leader, Michael Murphy. Yeah. And they eventually, on short final, fast rope, and I think that even deployed the rope. They were going to fast rope in the SEALs. They took an RPG shot up the aft ramp, and the first aircraft crashed and rolled down a mountain. 2 broke off, went back to regroup, and that's later that day, or I think it was the next day, they called us. That was June 28th. So they said, we think there's a survivor or survivors. We think they're American. We don't know if it's from the SEAL team or from the aircraft. What we need you to do is take your birds down to Jalalabad, which is down towards the Pakistan border, about an hour and 20-minute flight from Bagram, and just set up your satellite radios. And the PJs did that, and just wait for further words. So we fly down to Jalalabad, and we're just sitting there waiting. And about 4 a.m, we get a call that they wanted us to go up near the crash site and check out 3 coordinates, all within 1 kilometer, that they had triangulated via national assets, other aircraft, other means of where they think this transmission is coming from. What they were getting was just clicks, squelch breaks on the guard frequency, 243 nothing. And we were like, so no one was talking. They're like, no, we didn't like that, because in rescue, our biggest fear is them luring us into a rescue and then, sabotaging us or
right,
taking a dead guy's mirror or flare or radio, because that's real easy to do. And we call it a SAR trap, a search and rescue trap. And those are bad. And we were concerned that they wouldn't talk, because even an English-speaking bad guy would sound like a bad guy.
Correct.
You just know it's not a broski. It'd be very, very difficult to get the accent that we were looking for.
Especially from Mike. Let me throw Marcus in there. Texas boy.
Yeah.
His Southern drawl is going to come out.
Mike was from Long Island and other. They definitely would have had, if anything, American accents, not a British accent or a bad guy accent.
Agreed.
So anyways, we were concerned about that, but we went. And we, at the time on this deployment, had dual miniguns. That they're not big. 7.62 is all 7-barrel, I believe, but they can throw lead down, and just the tracers alone and the sound is terrifying. Low rate, 2,000 rounds a minute. High rate, 4,000 rounds a minute. That's like 60 or 70 bullets a second coming down on you. So it keeps people's heads down, in close. We're not out reaching targets. Ours is to keep people's heads down and get the hell out of there so some big guy can come in and take care of them.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
So we went, and it was still dark. Skinny, Jeff McCrander was my flight lead. My boss went by Skinny, big, tall, skinny dude. And he went down low. And that's when we're very vulnerable, low and slow. That's when they're going to hit us with RPGs and small arms fire. If we're moving and we got speed, it's almost impossible to hit us. But down low, in hovers, or very slow is not good. So I was above Skinny in what we called a spooky pattern, just orbiting with miniguns trained on him as he's just searching. And on the open freak, we train with ComSec and secure radios and code words and all types of stuff. But we were just on 243 nothing. This is Air Force rescue. Show yourself. We're here to pick you up, and we're looking for any sign of anything, We could hear faint squelch breaks on the radio, but we could not see any signaling from anybody on the ground. Then, as you're familiar with night vision devices, our FLIR works,
yes,
but the sun starts coming up. Now there's that time before you lift the goggles up, it's pitch freaking black. You put them down, and it's like you can't see. So sunrise and sunset's the worst time to fly goggles. And now it's freaking daylight. We're less than a kilometer away from the freaking shoot down site. And we see people milling around, we're just like, okay, this is not good. Skinny's down low. I'm being all I can be. We're just frantically just trying to find this individual or individuals. And finally we bingo out. At bingos, we hit our fuel state that says we're going to run out of gas. So we had to leave and get gas. So we break off and head back down to the mouth of the valley, which a little army outpost called Asadabad, right off the Peck River there. And they're like, no. We got gas waiting for you back at Jalalabad. We got some MC-130s. So we're like, okay. So we overfly Asadabad, fly the 20 minutes back to Jalalabad. And we're almost at, if you're familiar with the 60, low fuel lights are blinking. I mean, we're like,
which is not good, by the way.
Yeah, and they're not even calibrated that well. It's just kind of, not good.
Yeah.
So then they're like, oh, hey, our bad. We're almost to a Jalalabad. The 130s have already left. So you're going to have to go to this other fob or somewhere around Jalalabad where some army dudes were with fuel. And we're like, no, we're not. We're landing at Jalalabad. Because, so anyways, so we land at Jalalabad.
We have no more fuel to get to another destination.
Yeah.
We're coming.
Out to, PL, precautionary land, out in the middle of nowhere in Baghdad country because we freaking flame a motor, So anyways, we put it down.
That's not going to go well either.
We put it down. Jalalabad at the time was pretty sleepy in 2005, probably half a dozen to a dozen tents, a small Marine outpost, old Soviet base they built back in the 80s for when they were doing their Afghan campaign. So I had a runway, but it was right next to a major thoroughfare right into Pakistan, and jingle trucks and everybody walking, and they're like 25 yards, 30 yards from the aircraft over a cheesy fence, So we didn't feel real safe there in our parking spot. So they said, listen, we're going to work some gas. You guys have been up all night. Why don't you guys get some rest and we'll figure out the gas thing. So they're like, okay. Went and talked to the Marines. They gave us a tent with, a dozen cots. And we just kind of laid down, tried to get sleep, and rotated guys out with our, M4s, protecting the aircraft from the Hajj. Anyways, about dinner time, we've all got some sleep. We got there about, 8 o'clock in the morning. By dinner time, a Chinook came in, just a slick Army, CH-47, they called a fat cow. And it had a big hunkin' bladder in the back. And they just went around and filled people up. So they topped us off. It's now getting dark. And they're like, well, since you're there, why don't you stay in Jalalabad and monitor SATCOM? We did get an update that the clicking had stopped. And we were like, gosh, dang it. Was that our chance? Is the individual captured? Did the battery burn out? Is he dead? I just remember that feeling of like, gosh, dang it. We could have helped and we didn't, but we didn't see anything and we were hanging it out. Trust me. So
we're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Axnis. The Axnis PNG wireless ICS system delivers cutting-edge wireless ICS technology to any aircraft as a fully integrated system or as a carry-on, carry-off mobile base station. The PNG wireless system is the right solution for any mission.
That night, the weather started moving in. I remember it started raining. We get a call around midnight to say, hey, an old man had hiked out of the mountains and is at Camp Blessing up at the top of this river valley where in the Y in the river. And it's a little Marine outpost in the middle of bad guy country in the middle of nowhere. A bad guy hiked out and said they have an American in their village. We're like, yeah, right. Uh-huh. He pulls out his pocket. He wanted me to give you this. And it was his ISOPREP data. ISOPREP. Isolated personnel. Anyways, it's some kind of form you fill out. And it's got like a mugshot aside and the front of you. It's got all your fingerprints in case that's all they got. And it's got your word letter number that only you have. That they could authenticate you with, and then 4 statements at the bottom. And it had one of his statements written out, and it was from Marcus Luttrell. And we had all the ISOPREP data of the guys on the aircraft and the 4-man SEAL team. And like mine, and you kept them close hold. They weren't secret, maybe confident. You just didn't want to get them out because if you were in a pickle, you wanted nobody to know what your stuff said. My statement was, my first car was a 1979 yellow 4-door Chevy Chevette. And for nice. the young kids listening, they're probably like, dude,
not a Corvette.
He drove a Chevette. And I'm like, man, it was the opposite spectrum on the Chevy train. It was a piece of crap. But you could get a lot from that. You could get, what's the second letter of the color? What is the sum of the last 2 digits of the year? What you don't burn the whole statement. You just try to get pieces and parts so you can authenticate. You got to realize this guy's been through some traumatic stuff, maybe jumped out of a plane, whatever. And you pick things that you'll remember even in stressful situations. Another one was my girlfriend's names and hair colors through high school or whatever, So anyways, we said, well, let's go get this old man because they wanted to further debrief him. So we take off, and I remember the weather was so bad, and it was pitch black. We fly blacked out, pitch black, weather's hitting the windscreen. And we turned around and went back to Jalalabad and had to wait about an hour for a semi-break in the weather just to get up into the mountains, up to this Camp Blessing. And when there, again, Skinny went in to this landing site. I'm doing a spooky pattern in this tight granite-faced canyon area. And I don't know what the gunners were doing, but I wasn't paying any attention to Skinny on the ground. I was trying just to not hit the walls of the canyon. And I remember A-10s were flying overhead, and they'd pop out flares periodically. And you're just like, oh, you could see. And then it went pitch black. And our goggles were scintillating. My FLIR, usually when there's precipitation or humidity, your FLIR, forward-looking infrared camera, isn't that good. Both sucked. And finally, Skinny calls that he's taken off, and we had to take the old man down to the river mouth, the valley there in Asadabad, to get further debriefed. And I think it's funny. I tell guys that there were 2 FBI agents waiting to debrief him in Asadabad, in the middle of nowhere, wearing Patagonia gear with beards. And, you know, we work with different customers and teams and CIA guys at times, but FBI, I thought that was Homeland, you know, but post 9/11, everything was all wonky. So they wanted to further debrief him to get his story straight. We drop him off, fly back to Jalalabad, and they just say, you know, why don't you guys wait here until sunrise? So sun comes up, that around 8 probably. They're like, okay, you guys can come back to Bagram. And remember, I said it was a slow deployment, and I'm calling home every night because I'm sleeping during the day and up at night. And Tucson was 12 hours different. So
yeah,
it's almost like
perfect.
1 o'clock is 1 o'clock. Yeah. I'd call twice sometimes. It was so slow because we're on alert. You know, we'd fly off of alert on a training thing, but your bird is cocked up, ready to go. And you're just sitting for 72 hours waiting for something to happen. And we'd get called, but not all the time. So I suddenly stopped calling. That wasn't a good thing. So
I'm thinking about my wife right now. Oh my gosh, she would lose her mind.
It was my first deployment. I got 4 little boys at home, and my wife Penny had, you know, she wasn't hearing anything from me. And there was a Chalk 3 that came up the following day to Bagram as a backup spare aircraft and crew. And on that was my good friend Mike Flake. He was in our unit, and friends and neighbors. And I said, listen, Mike, you need to have your wife call Penny and tell her I'm out and about. Everything's okay, but he'll call you when he can, you know.
I like that.
Well, of course, she forgets, and eventually calls her a day or so later. You know, it's been now about 3 days or 2 days. I don't know. So she finally calls her, you know, and she's like, oh, I was supposed to call you. Jeff's, you know, and just got her more nervous, you know, like, I don't know, something big is going on, but they don't tell me anything, you know. So that was number 1 priority before going to get chow and cleaned up. I had to give my lovely wife, Penny, a call. We were very hungry. There were MREs. There wasn't a chow hall or anything there. All I remember about Jalalabad was Red Bull and Pop-Tarts. That's what we've been living on for the past 2 days.
Oh my gosh. That's like a mega sugar rush and energy. Like,
I know. Like, you're just like,
don't let me sugar crash.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So we get there. I give my wife a call, and she's all into, you know, what are you doing? Da-da-da. It already hit the news. Navy SEALs missing. Da-da-da. Helicopter shot down. She knew it was a Chinook, so she knew it wasn't me. But she's asking all these questions. I'm on a freaking base phone tied through Davis Mothin to a landline to her. And I'm like, and we just signed non-disclosure statements. It's a classified op.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you know, even if I did, I couldn't talk to you. And she just wanted to know I was okay. So we kind of had a little code of, if I was with Mike, I was at a base. with 20,000 NATO troops. If I was out and about, I was in bad guy country, doing things. So she's like, okay, you're with Mike. Okay, yeah. Okay. I said, listen, I'll call you. Everything's okay. I'll call you when I can. So then we go get some chow, get cleaned up. They said, hey, get some rest. Come back at 3:30. We got our briefing. So at 3:30, Skinny and I went to the brief there at the TOC, the Operations Center. And they had this big elaborate plan that they were going to do. They said, indeed, it is Marcus Luttrell is in the village while we were sleeping from Camp Blessing or that surrounding area. They hiked in a 20-man SOF team and confirmed he was alive, confirmed he was really bad off, and secured the surrounding areas. So rewind, Marcus did see us. He couldn't signal us or didn't dare signal us. And we're trying to find him. He's just like, please, 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 please. He's really bad off. And then we bingo out and leave. That had to be a very, very bad day for him. His whole team is dead. He's got a broken back, shrapnel wounds, gunshot wounds. He's really bad off. And then they were originally stumbled on by shepherds that they let go, that compromised them and turned this into a big fight, where another shepherd stumbled on him. His name was Gulab. And I heard he lifted up his man dress, gave 2 thumbs up, and said, no Taliban. Because he heard that means good in the United States.
Yeah, thumbs up.
So he was showing him he wasn't hiding any weapons. And for whatever reason, Marcus did not take him out. I think he was on his last string, and this guy basically carried him to the village, saved his life. The bad guys that had been looking for him saw that. They went unsuccessfully a couple times to the village, and these guys protected him, And right. I heard there's they call it Pashtun Wali or something, the Pashtun influence there that's millennia old. Those dirt people have been there for ages. In the middle of nowhere, living on a cliff face with some goats and some crops. That's life. And this Pashtun Wali, I've heard, is if someone comes to you that needs assistance or help, you're kind of like obligated or whatever to help. I think they were sick and tired of the bad guys in the area. They weren't totally pro-American, but they were more pro-American than Taliban, if you will. So when they came, they turned them away. And they were a small village, just like 5 mud huts. And on the mountainside. And the weird thing is the bad guys are from there too, and they kind of semi-respected it in a weird way, I think.
Yeah.
So anyways, we heard that he was there. They were securing the site. They did know bad guys there. They had Preds. They had other assets now really looking at this village, and they kept them at bay. And they said, we're going to go pick them up. And they said, come back. And the plan was the Chinook was going to come in. What they had was terraced. They'd cut terraces into the mountain face where they would grow crops. And they had mud huts. And we had satellite imagery of it. The angle of the satellite imagery didn't express how steep it was. It looked a little higher than we thought. But they're big green fields, probably about, 20, 30 feet, maybe longer than that. I don't know, probably 20 to 40 feet wide, these ledges. The Chinook was going to go. You've seen pictures where they can lock their brakes and just put their back wheels on the thing, put the ramp down, and then they just kind of hover, and then everybody runs on, and then they take off. They do it on buildings, on whatever, and these guys were very proficient. So we come back. we're Air Force Combat Rescue. We're going to be orbiting 5 miles away, if that, and just there if it hits the fan, to go in with our PJs that are basically combat medics. If they need assistance, whatever, that's what we do. We go help. We on a next deployment, we went and picked up a Chinook. One of their Chinooks had crashed in weather, and our guys extracted both the living and the dead guys out of the Chinook. That's kind of what we do at times. We have gear that we can do stuff, and they train for that.
Heck yeah. I've got some good friends that are PJs, so I personally am well aware of the capabilities of a pararescueman. Hell yeah.
In their eyes, we're their bus drivers. But anyways, whatever. So we come back at 4:30 for the flight brief. In that hour, things had changed. They had got word that there was another American 10 kilometers away in another village, 19-year-old, cleanly shaven American. And we're like, that don't make sense. Everybody up there had beards that were on the ground. We did lose the Marine 2 weeks prior. There was so much confusion that they didn't know how actually to handle that. So the 06, the colonel or captain, Navy captain at the time, said, I am going to hike. We're going to go get the survivor. And then I'm going to hike the 20-man soft team, that 10 clicks, to the other side. So we're going to just drop some water. So now I'm just picking up one guy. I'd hate to waste a Chinook because they were just infilling rangers to that mountain. By the end of the week, there was 1,000 rangers on that mountain. And the bad guys know when the gig is up, you know. So then they just looked at us, Skinny and I were in the corner, and said, 60s, you got the pickup. And quite frankly, I wasn't paying much attention to the brief because we weren't really integral in it. And I'm like, did he just say we got the freaking pickup? And Skinny's like, yeah, he did. And so now everybody's like looking at us, wanting answers. You know, what's our tactics? How are we going to go in? Where are we going to go? What's our routing? This and that. You know, we're just like, just getting inundated with stuff. Our flight was, we had a AC-130 gunship, which I'll take a freaking gunship on a rescue mission any day of the week.
Hell yeah.
Flight of A-10s, which are our best friends. So those guys were just really interested in our route of flight up the river valley to the village and back, because they called it H hour. I think it's a soft thing. A hit. I think it's for a hit. That the H hour was 11:30 local. So before midnight was H hour. H minus 5 or H minus 5 minutes, they were going to start trashing that whole mountainside with diversionary strikes, with they known bad guy sites, keeping their heads down and just trashing. So they wanted to know where we were going to come and go, and they were going to trash everywhere else. So we were very interested in letting them know how we were going to get in and out. And then, you know, keep their heads down, and then we get the guy and then leave, and then they stop shooting, and then the guy's like, hey, where'd he go? You know, that was the theory.
Yeah.
So they start asking, and Skinny was a weapons officer in the Air Force. Those are the tactical geniuses, go to Nellis Air Force Base, and they become weapons officers. The A-10 guys were weapons officers. The AC gunship was AFSOC, and they weren't in the weapons school at the time. So Skinny was talking all this weapons tactics. They're like, are both of you going to go in? Can both of you even fit? Do both of you even need to go? How are you going to do it? And remember, Skinny was doing everything, but tactically, he just kind of looks up to the plywood ceiling and says, you know, we're going to do a trailer spooky. and my heart sank. He'd just said, I'm going to send my trail bird in while I pop up and cover him in a spooky. And tactically, that's the most sound option that we have instead of a leader spooky. So if he was going to go in, he's slowing down, getting very vulnerable. I'm back here trying to provide coverage without overflying him too much. Or if I do pass him and pop up, now he goes around. It can be messy. Where if it's a trailer spooky, he finds the LZ, marks it with chem lights, with whatever, pops up. As I'm slow, he's already still got energy. He's got me through the whole thing and in a spooky pattern. So then I'm just like, holy crap, dude. And it's just me and him. And I remember that we finished the brief and the AC 130 guy's like, okay, let's go get this guy, and I'm like, crap. So we go back to our staging area and we tell our crews that, hey, dude, we're doing the pickup. The Chinook's going to keep putting Rangers or PJs up there. By that time, they'd found Danny Dietz and Mike Murphy. PJs from Portland were holding him and waiting. But the priority was Marcus, of course.
Yeah.
So it was on July 2nd, actually. And they said, we're going to go in. And then we go out. We start pre-flighting the birds and we're doing it. And I'm just pacing. I'm just like, while the guys are working on the aircraft and getting it ready. And Dave Gonzalez, my co-pilot's spinning it up or, getting the nav system going. And I'm just like, holy crap, just like, please, 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 please don't screw this up. And thinking about all the different ways and things we could do. And that's what we train for our whole life is just train. And we never do anything hardly,
Right.
So we get in, we start going, and now we've got an hour and a half flight. It was super quiet going down to Jalalabad, just, On my right, our flight engineer and the right gunner was a 2-tour Vietnam vet. So he was the old man. He had served 2 tours in Vietnam. We were reservists, remember? But most of us were full-time guys. So we had tons of experience. So he was cool in the gang. My left gunner was a college student, about 22 years old, 21 years old. He was just, what can I shoot? What can I shoot? What can I shoot? And I'm like, dude, we're not freaking shooting nothing, dude. There's 20 Americans and villagers, and the ROE at the time, we had to take direct fire before we could even return fire. And I'm like, don't worry. And then the PJs, they had moved the PJs around and stacked them on our aircraft. One was a doctor. He had just graduated from medical school. And the other one was an EMT for years on an ambulance. So we had 2 of the most prepared PJs in the back. And my co-pilot was a Border Patrol pilot with thousands of more hours than I had, but he was a part-time guy. So anyways, we're going. I'm trying to think of all the different things. We kept doing weight computations because weight is life. If we're going to come into a LZ or into a hover, we need power margin. And we were up at 8,000 plus feet. And so,
wow.
So we were anxious about weight. We were anxious about bad guys. We got a call en route that bad guys were within 100 meters of the LZ. So we're just going. I remember checking in with the A-10s. I remember thinking my plan was over this river that goes between Asadabad and Jalalabad. I was going to just go over the river, dump some gas, because I needed to get rid of about 800 pounds to give me a margin that I still had reserves, but I had a little bit of more wiggle room. And we've got dump. We only do it in emergencies or combat. Because they're safety wired on our aft console. And it does about think 1,000 pounds a minute. But you want it to turn off, and you don't want it to keep going, because then we never really play with it. It's in the simulator usually. So I remember breaking the safety wires, turning around and saying, "This is for Penny and the boys." And we dump 800 pounds and turn it off. But I couldn't go over the river valley because it was so dark. And the weather had moved in the day prior. It was overcast. My FLIR's not working. My goggles are scintillating. I can't see skinny aircraft hardly at all. We've got 3 slime lights on the back of his spine and on the tail of the 60 that I could see and try to get position on.
Yeah.
But closure is a big thing. And I, as you mentioned, the first of the show, lost 12 buds in a midair at Nellis up in the Nevada Range Complex back in 98. And it was a closure issue, I believe, on a bad night in weather. So I'm just on his wing, just barely there. And we just dump. And we're over houses. We're at about 100 feet, just trying to hug the hills. But there's these mud huts and houses along. Nothing big, but it's July 2nd. They don't have air conditioning. They sleep on their roofs. So I know I doused a lot of people probably with JP4, JP8, whatever we were using at the time. But I didn't care. I thought I was going to get in trouble, but nobody said anything. So whatever. They got over it. But I needed that margin. So we pop up into the river valley, and H-5 had already started. And we were IP, the last waypoint before we head up the mountain. And we were down at about 1,500 feet, going up to about 8,000 feet. So it was up in the hills. I'm from Utah, and it reminded me of Little Cottonwood Canyon, up where Snowbird and Alta are. Those ski resorts, big, steep granite mountains and tight. And then some goat herders are living up in the middle of nowhere, on this cliff face. But we see the gunships, we see the A-10 strafing, bombing, all types of stuff going on. And it's crescendoing. We're freaking out. We're going. We've got 5 radios on our aircraft. It seems like all of them are going off at the same time. So I'm pulling up switches to mute different things and telling my guys in the back, you monitor. Al Udeid in Saudi Arabia was calling us. I'm like, dude, this is not a good freaking time, dude. So,
everybody wants to know right then.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So we're sitting there going, it's crescendoing. The LZ was going to be marked by a single IR strobe light, which we can see for miles, but you need goggles. But as soon as they started shooting, all those special forces turn their IR strobe light on in their helmet. So as we get closer, we see strobe lights all over and around. And it almost looks like muzzle flash at first, and it's just not good. And we're like, we don't know what's going on. Me and Skinny are trying to talk. We're trying to find, we're back and forth. Finally, the A-10 hears us. And the last thing we want to be doing is orbiting, trying to find this ledge where we're supposed to land in bad guy country, right by the shoot down, The A-10 hears, he rolls in the weather with his laser designator or something. I think when they do laser guided bombs and stuff, they can laze a target for a buddy or themselves. And then a laser guided bomb goes there. Well, he turns his laser on and cycles into the LZ. It was codenamed Barracuda, and just didn't drop anything on it. And all we see was right when it was crescendoing and we're just like freaking out, stuff's blowing up all around us. This big beam of light comes at about a 60-degree angle right on this ledge. There's probably a strobe light right in the laser beam,
You hear it in the background.
It was like a flashlight from God, dude, and that's right what we needed. Skinny Mark CLZ, he sees it, pops up. I start slowing down, and I'm like, holy crap, this is maybe going to work. And there was mud huts in front of me, a cliff face, and this terrace of that. So I was going to just come in, do a pedal turn, and land. Easy smeezy.
At 8,500 feet.
Yeah, unlike the movie, that was in a football field during the day. I mean, you could have landed that one.
And I'm not even a pilot.
Yeah, but you could have. Yeah. So anyways, we went in there. We had all these things. If it was too dark, if it was that, I forgot. I got with the HC-130 guys, and I'm like, or the AC-130, and I'm like, hey, dude, we were just up there last night, and it was really dark. And don't you got some kind of big hunkin' lantern, like you can shine an IR, kind of like those things that you have during a mall open house or whatever, those big bright lights.
Yeah, big lights.
They've got an IR
all over the place.
Yeah, they got an IR filter on them, and they could light a football field up, and only you can see it. It's like daylight with goggles. He's like, yeah, it depends on what weapons we're using, this, that, but how about this? H minus 30 seconds, I will light that ledge up like a football field, he said. And I'm like, thank you. Well, as we're coming in and it's crescendoing, part of the crescendoing and freaking out factor was at 30 seconds prior, I see the clouds kind of, and then we hear over the Rescort freak, halos, our call sign was halo, halos, negative burn. And I'm like, oh, crap. So now it's
can't
still
get the lighting.
dark. My
you're talking the IR light from the C-130 can't make it through the cloud.
Yeah, it can't.
Oh,
so now we have zero illumination. My FLIR, come to find out, was broken because Skinny's was working a lot better, but I didn't know that. And my goggles are scintillating, and it's just darker than dark. We got this single IR strobe, but we're like, maybe this is going to work. We came in, but the satellite imagery was green. That just cultivated their crop. So it wasn't green, it was dirt. And I came in, and I hadn't even planned or thought about browning out, but we trained for it. But then I hit about 15 feet, just get engulfed in a brownout. And that's just when the dirt is flying and this, that. I can't see. And we were flying with doors on at the time. I can't see anything. I can't see the cliff face out my left. There was a mud hut at my right rear, and then 1,500 foot drop off here. And I just remember it, as it mentioned, going into slow motion, just like, holy crap, we're going to frickin' crash. And thinking about my wife and boys and everything, trying to just get it. What you do, my FEs and the back enders were laying down on the floor with the doors open. They could see straight down. I couldn't see out the dash or through the windows, but they could sense I was drifting left. And they both in unison, and they have to, stroke us up front. Hey, dude, you're coming left. Okay, stop left, come right. No, it was stop left, stop left, stop left, because we didn't have much wiggle room, and I was going to hit that rock face. And Dave, my co-pilot, with all those hours, he had his hands up on the throttle quadrant to go to ECU lockout and get, torch the motors, get as much power as we can in an emergency. If I needed more power, it can give you a little bit more in an emergency, but it takes all the governing out and stuff.
Yeah.
He took his hands off the throttle quadrant and put it right next to the cyclic because he knew I was going to come hard right and just caught the collective as I, just instinctively came hard right, which was very good at the time. So I'm up there being all I can be, trying to get this freaking bird in control, get it on the ground. I'm in a brownout, but then about 40 feet off on the top of the terrace that's on my left, out in front of me, because this terrace kind of ended into a point, but the top one kept going. There was some kind of grass or bush or something hanging over the edge, something bushy and grassy or something. And I could see it waving. I could see that through the dust cloud at the top of my windscreen. I couldn't see the ground. I couldn't see the cliff face. I couldn't see the cliff. I couldn't see anything, but I could see that. And instantly I had a reference point. And now I could tell if I was going left or right or up or down. You know what I mean? So once you have a reference point, and it's just the thousands of hours you've flown, it's just like, oh, shrunk. And then once I got that in control, then the flight engineer was able to bring me down. I remember yelling at him because I couldn't see anything but the cliff. We were within 2 feet of the ledge, but he didn't want us close to the rock face. We only had about, probably another 10 feet is all over there too. It wasn't a big ledge, 56 foot rotor, but most of it was hanging off of the other side. The gunner throws out some water, Costco pallets, if you will, of water bottles for the guys because they're going hiking, and some MREs. And then the PJs open the door, and suddenly they see 2 bad guys rushing the helicopter right near the stabilator and the tail rotor, which you don't do.
Right.
You don't even rush a helicopter. You get down on your knees. We come out, get you, authenticate you, bring you in. 2 bad guys dressed in man jammies. They've got red dots on their chests, and we're about going to take them out because you can't approach a helicopter. If they had a vest on, if they had a hand grenade, whatever, they could take us all out. So right then they clearly see a third person that's clearly an American soldier running up behind them. So they hold off. Thank heavens. It was Marcus dressed up with this Gulab guy, the shepherd that saved his life. And that they frantically ask, where's the PC, precious cargo, the survivor? And they're like, he's right there, dude. And it was Marcus. We thought he was ambulatory. He had a broken freaking back. He had shrapnel wounds. He's running towards the helicopter. Well, I've talked to him and laughed at him numerous times about this. He was like, he was so hopped up. Those fields, opium, that's what they grow there and sell it because that's what makes the money. So he was so hopped up on some opioids. He thought he was in the village a week, but anyways, he was not going to let us leave without him. So they quickly authenticate him and throw him in the back. Well, the shepherd jumps in too. And I'm sitting up front. All I hear, this all takes place less than 30 seconds. I hear he plugs in, go, go, go. So I just pick up and head out into the dark abyss, down the river valley. They're still firing around us. And then I make my call because I thought, okay, I'm a good trained Air Force rescue guy. Code word for pickup is popcorn plus the survivors. So it's usually always you go pick an F-16 guy up, popcorn plus 1. And that's what they were expecting to hear. And this is going back to the talk, to LUD, to all over.
Right.
Popcorn plus 2. And they're like,
what?
Halo, say again. I was like, popcorn plus 2. Understand popcorn plus 2. I'm going through, and then I'm like, we freaking picked up 2 guys the shepherd jumped on. Okay, well, he's not going to Jalalabad. And then we're like, okay. And it was his dad or uncle or the village elder. So they said, drop him off. And he probably hiked back with his bud, We drop him off at Asadabad and go back to Jalalabad. This time there were 2 C-130s, MC-130s waiting for us. One to give us gas and the other had doctors and nurses on it. Engines running, ramp down, and we land right at the back of the running C-130. And now Marcus wasn't running or walking. And that was the first time I saw him. When I lean over and look past my co-pilot, I see him being kind of carried out with the PJs. collapses on one of the cots, and our PJs barely got off the ramp before the plane started taxiing, and then just went to the runway and took off, because they can get back. That we call it a transload. They can get back way quicker than an hour and a half flight, in a helicopter.
Yeah. Yep.
So then we went and got gas and land back at our pad next to the road. It's the middle of the night though. And I remember shutting down, and I think it's a thing with adrenaline or something. I was so hopped up, and because we almost died, it was crazy. They're pounding my window as the blades are slowly rotating down. Spanky, you're the man, and I'm like, dude, they have no freaking clue, dude, that we almost balled it up, and all that just left my body, and it wasn't just like a little twitch. I was like shaking, and I've never felt it. I was like, this is weird, and Dave's laughing, everybody's laughing, and I'm just kind of shaking, and it was just amazing that it freaking worked out. I tell Marcus all the time, you were meant to be rescued, dude, because there was a lot going on.
Can I get an amen?
Yeah. And so we go back in, we're hungry. We get some Pop-Tarts and Red Bull, or whatever. But all I wanted to do, and it sounds kind of cheesy, is talk to my wife. But I'm in the middle of nowhere. And some Marine heard me. He's like, hey, dude, we got a sat phone in the back if you want to use it. That would have been nice a few days ago, dude,
Yeah, right?
So I go back there, and my wife she wasn't home. I got her on her cell. She was at a fabric store getting ready we'd just built a house and getting curtain material. She was making curtains. And I called, and she was anxious. Are you with Mike? No, I'm out and about. Okay, so she didn't like that. Well, how are you calling me? Don't worry about it. Everything is really, really good. Okay, she's just asking all these questions. You're out and about. What are you? And I guess I just kept saying everything is really, really good. I know, but you're. And then suddenly she stopped, and she's like, "Did you just do what you've been training your whole career to do?" And then it hit me. Then I'm like, Penny, there are freaking Marines right outside this door, and I don't want Air Force boy to show up with red eyes. I'm sorry.
I cannot be crying right now, honey.
Exactly. Anyways, it was amazing to just think back. She was like, okay. I said, I'll call you when I can. They said, stay there until morning time. And then we flew back, and it was years until I was to meet Marcus. He stayed there at the hospital for a while, but we were going home trying to find a ride. Our rides had already left days prior with the other helicopters. So we bummed a ride up to, I think we left our helicopters there and bummed a ride. Oh, because we swapped out with our sister unit from Cocoa Beach, Melbourne area. And we had to get up to one of the stands, Kazakhstan, where they had a base, to try to get on a rotator to try, it was just a mess. But we finally made it home, and they finally declassified Operation Red Wings. And now this summer, it's going to be 20 years ago. Look at gray hair, dude. This is old.
You still look good.
This is old news, but yeah, crazy. But yeah, Marcus and I keep in touch. I've been out to his house. We did that podcast in his barn at studio. And it's just cool knowing that we were a small part of getting him home. He met his wife. I met her when they were engaged. They now have 2 kids. And the guys we pick up, we usually never even hear what happens.
Right? Never.
It's even, and because there's HIPAA, there's just, you just don't know. It's just the satisfaction of knowing you've saved all these lives, but you don't know them. They don't know you. But with him, it's different. And, we went out to a 5-year anniversary when he opened up his Lone Survivor Foundation at the time. And it was in Houston. And we brought in 227, the aircraft that picked his sorry ass up.
Wow.
You're supposed to land in Minute Maid Ballpark, but then the Major League Baseball didn't want us putting dents in the field, so we landed in the street. They cut down downtown Houston for us, and we landed the bird there, and they had this big gala. All of the family members were there hugging us, like we're in the elevator, and she's like, "Oh, are you guys here with the helicopter?" We're in our flight suits. We were like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, I'm Matt Axelson's mom." And I'm like,
"Oh, wow."
I'm like,
"Oh, wow."
I'm sorry. We give her a hug, and she was just so thankful and stuff. But we meet Danny Dietz's family. We meet Marcus's mom. We meet all these. It was just crazy. And we meet Peter Berg, and he's the director that did Transformers and all that, but he did Lone Survivor. And I went up to him and I'm like, "Listen, dude, Marcus called us an Army helicopter in his book. Don't do that. Just make sure that you've got a probe 60 in the movie.
Yeah, buddy.
Make sure it's got so he used some of our schoolhouse birds in Albuquerque was the birds that did it. But yeah, make sure
that's beautiful.
It's Air Force. Come on."
We're going to call that a typo in the book.
Yeah. I give him crap about it all the time.
Oh, Spanky. Oh my gosh. That story does not ever get old for me. I thank you so much for telling us your side of it. It's just incredible. You all the crews involved.
I kind of drawn it out a little bit too long. Sorry about that.
No way. Are you kidding me? I live for the details. This is amazing. Most people don't ever get to hear this side of it, and that's why I like doing this and bringing as much of that out. I do have one question about the whole thing.
You bet.
How many days did it take you to come down from that adrenaline rush?
Well, as I said, it came down after I got gas and I started shaking. But then
no. You're still maxed out. Like, I know you're not sleeping right.
We were pretty hopped up. I even remember going home and trying to tell a little bit about how it all went down to my folks and my wife and kids, But yeah, it was just awesome, just knowing that we made a difference. That's why we love combat rescue.
Spanky, oh my gosh. I love, thank you so much for sharing your side of that incredible epic story. The book is done amazing, and I'm so happy that you're mentioned. I'm happy that you and Marcus keep in touch. That you're right. That doesn't ever happen, especially with people that we rescue. Yeah. It doesn't ever happen. And I think it's amazing that you guys are still in touch. So well done to you and your entire crews and everybody else involved in that. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, heck yeah. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. The RealResQStore.com. Your shop for all your podcast-worthy gear. From comfortable shirts to cozy mugs, we've got everything to showcase your love for your favorite podcast. So what are you waiting for? Head to the RealResQStore.com and let your gear do the talking. So let's get into a little background about you. So how did you get into the Air Force, and what brought you to being a pilot?
Well, growing up, I was in northern Utah by Hill Air Force Base, north of there, fighters and this, that, flying. And I was always mesmerized with the desire to fly. But I no way wanted to join the military. I didn't even consider. You were Coast Guard, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the best kept secret in the world. I didn't even know about that, You guys do your mission all the time. All we do is train, and then never do anything. So I had a desire to fly. I always liked it, wanted it. And I ended up down. I was serving a 2-year mission for my church out in eastern Pennsylvania. And my folks had moved to Tempe, Arizona. He was at Utah State. Now he's at Arizona State. And I thought, I'd already done a year of college. I thought, I'll go give ASU a shot. Well, of course, fell in love with it, like palm trees and fruit trees and girls wearing Daisy Dukes and bikini tops to school. And you're like, wow, ASU, this is a pretty cool school, But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, and then I just decided to go talk to the ROTC guys and got a pilot slot. And the rest is history. Well, 10 days before commissioning, my senior year, I was graduating. They took all the pilot slots away after Desert Storm. It was right after Desert Storm had wrapped up. Bush #1 was drawing down. It was in a recession. So they said I was going to be a missileer. All of us were going to be missileers. And they're like, there's not that many freaking
I don't even know what that is. What is it?
You're in the ground, 2 guys with keys, 3, 2, 1, and you launch the nukes. It's the end of the world thing. There's guys on alert down there, 2-person concept to launch the nukes in the silos, Anyways, but I was like, I'm not doing that. I was working up in Phoenix Sky Harbor, trash and bags, working for an airline. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go the civilian route. But then I was like, I don't know. And then I finally ended up saying, okay, I'll get commissioned, but I'll just maybe get a master's out of it, worst case. They did come back and say, we'll try to get your pilot slot back, and we'll do it by age and data rank. So I thought, they said, but we need to know a career field because we can't make everybody missileers. So I chose maintenance and became a maintenance officer.
Nice.
On the B-1 bomber, the swept wing bomber out in Abilene, Texas. And while I was there, I met my best friend, and he was a prior Air Force helicopter guy that had got a fixed wing transition because there was too many in the 80s to the B-1. So he's flying the B-1 now, and he was trying to go back to helicopters. I'm like, I didn't even know the Air Force had freaking helicopters. And why would you do that, dude? And he got me so jazzed on helos. He then started writing books and became a congressman. He was on the House Intel Committee for years. Great guy. He just left.
This is your best friend.
Yeah, he just left Congress in September, but good dude. And he got me so jazzed on helos that when my number did come up, finally a few years later, and I went to pilot training down in Del Rio, Texas, great metropolis in the middle of nowhere on the Rio Grande, flying the fixed wing and doing all the acrobatics and just all that stuff. And then it was time to choose, and there was one fighter slot, 25 of us, and I was number 8. So I was like, well,
that's God.
I guess I'm going helicopters. And I took so much crap from it because these are guys, there was no helicopter guys there. They're all fighter and fixed wing guys. But I just stuck to it and actually talked a couple of other buds into it there. And we had a great career. I did 25 years and never looked back. It was, as I say, our mission and flying helicopters, they're just so versatile. They're so awesome. And our mission, our combat role is saving lives.
Right.
Not that I couldn't take lives in combat or that, but I hear it kind of messes with your head if you do it a lot. I don't know, but I just thought we call it God's mission, dude. We're out there putting our life on the line to save someone else. So we love it.
And your motto, well, I'll say the pararescues, that others may live.
Yeah. These things we do that others may live. Yeah. That's the rescue motto. It's a great, So
it is. Yeah.
That's how I got in. That's how I got into it.
That's so awesome. That's hilarious. It's actually another part of the reason that I asked you to come on, because you actually don't have just the Marcus Luttrell story. You've got a plethora of rescues throughout your career. 25 years of flying. That's incredible. Well done. So in this, I love hearing everybody's very first rescue Do you remember yours?
The one that sticks out to me, and I believe it was because I was a co-pilot, new at Nellis Air Force Base up in Nevada, in Vegas. We got a call, an Amtrak train derailed in Kingman, Arizona.
That was your very first rescue?
Yeah, and it was a mass casualty, mass casualty one. So they were the hospital couldn't handle all the people, and the water. It was one of those flash flood things, kind of wiped out the track and it derailed. So we grabbed some of the bad ones, and we had multiple helicopters come down, and we went to UMC in Vegas, took the real bad ones to Vegas, and landed nearby, and they did a transload with an ambulance. But that was my first real rescue that I remember.
Oh my gosh. And now, were you guys landing at the accident site, or
Yeah.
did you guys have to? Okay.
Next to the train on its side and stuff.
Wow. Holy smoke.
Yeah.
And so you're National Guard at the time, or
No,
Air National Guard?
I was active duty.
So were you just on base and they were like, hey, launch? Or
Yeah.
how did that even get to you guys?
We get it from the RCC, the Rescue Coordination Center calls, and then there's a phone tree, and we have guys. And I don't know if it was on the weekend or if it was during the day, but yeah, we just got people together and got crews as quick together as we could and got down there within pretty short order. Yeah. We didn't have birds on alert and stuff, but yeah, we'll get calls periodically for civilian rescues, when now it seems like it's less and less because the sheriff's birds have hoist was our bread and butter. Hoist is that they didn't have a lot of hoist equipped aircraft, but now they do. So if they've got a hoist, they can pretty much do anything. That's what we'd get called in for a lot because they needed our hoist over my career. But in the past 20 or 30 years, they've kind of upgraded and got a lot of that stuff now.
Yeah, the Arizona DPS guys, they fly the 429, and I think they were replacing their entire fleet with the 429 with the hoist on it.
Yeah,
because prior to that, they were just doing monoline.
Yeah, at first they just they didn't have it, and we'd get called in Southern Arizona all the time because DPS and the sheriffs didn't, but they do have it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wild how, like, not only the tides turn, but how advancements of, oh, wow, this is a great capability to have. And then they can.
And a lot of that capability with the people that are flying them now has, now they all fly nods, goggles. Yep. Because before they didn't have that, so it's just transition that they've got a lot better equipment these days.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. I'll throw my opinion in there. I think it's great. Like, you're getting fantastic training. You get a lot of us that come out of the military with a lot of that training that's bringing it to the civilian side. We just got to follow a few more rules and regulations. That's all.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, I love flying with goggles. Even now, I think if you're flying at night in a helicopter, you should be flying with goggles. It's amazing what you can see.
Yeah.
So. Dang. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, there are a couple other ones that I know stand out to you because we talked about it prior to coming on. But so I'm going to go through them a little bit here. And the first one that you had mentioned to is you had stranded hikers up in Red Rock.
Oh, yeah. On the west side of Vegas. Some guys from Canada, of all places, they were rock climbing up this sheer cliff, and it was taking a lot longer than they had planned. They were in shorts and no jackets, no windbreakers, anything. And they had to stay on the cliff face at night because they ran out. It got dark. They started getting hypothermic. The guys were coming in to get them, but it was a 12-hour hike over from the other side of the mountain range, and they needed our hoist. So they called us up. And I remember me and Carl Youngblood, he was one of my buds that died in the midair shortly a year later. But went in, and the wind was blowing hard. And as you know, with helicopters, you get this downdraft, updraft, and you got to get through it. And once you get below that, then you're okay. But I remember getting bucked around and stuff. We weren't at a huge elevation, probably only about, under 2,000 feet. But the winds were just crazy. And they had made it to the top of the cliff face by morning. And we went in and dropped PJs down with the hoist, got them bundled up, and they came up, and then we took them down. So they weren't, they were just in a world of hurt. But yeah, that was kind of a technical rescue on the top of this jagged cliff thingy,
Very nice. Right seat or left seat?
I was co-pilot then, and we swap around a little bit in the Air Force, but primarily left seat as a co-pilot, and that's what I was sitting left seat.
Gotcha. Dang. So one of my buddies, Dave Callan, he actually used to fly with a Las Vegas Metro Police Department. So he's got rescues all up and around.
I flew one of their birds. I always wanted to fly a little bird, like a Hughes 500.
Yeah.
I went up in one of the Metro birds. Actually, the night the Aladdin Hotel, they imploded. We were providing security, and he let me fly a ton. And I remember flying, and we were doing some pattern work beforehand. And I thought I was having an emergency because I was having to put a lot of pedal in, like I'd lost some hydraulics, and I was just like this force. And I'm like, I think something's up with, I think I might even mention hydraulics. He's like, dude, this thing only has cables. He's like, are you telling me this is the first time you've actually felt aerodynamic forces on the aircraft? Because all I learned in was Hueys and 60s, which all have assists. So I thought that was fun. That was a fun, if I could have one of those in my garage, that would be awesome, man. Those
right on.
Fun to fly, those little birds. But yeah.
It's kind of funny getting called out like that.
Yeah,
Did you fly such a beast of an aircraft?
Yeah. With my autopilot,
Right. Oh, that's funny. Nice. All right. So let me bring you to another one. You were part of a team that got called out to a national forest fire, the firefighters.
Oh yeah.
That got hit by lightning? What?
Yeah. So they were Forest Service firefighting. It was a wildfire up east of Tucson on Mount Graham, which is the biggest mountain in southern Arizona. And there was a major wildfire going on, and they had all these, I don't think they jumped because you can get in there by road, but they were those like smoke jumpers, if you will, hardcore guys just fighting fires in terrible terrain. And I was actually on a house hunting trip I was in our sister squadron out in Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, Florida at Patrick Air Force Base. And I was moving to Tucson, back closer to family. And it was Friday afternoon, and people had started drinking. And Skinny, that was my flight lead, he was like, hey, dude, we just got a call from the RCC. And everybody had been drinking except me and Skinny. And he was like, you want to do a rescue? I was like, yeah, I need a helmet, so I got some.
You don't even have your flight gear with you? Oh, that's fantastic.
I go to life support, get suited up, and we head out. And it was a pretty long, because it was a steep, so it was almost 150-foot hoist. It was because just how steep it was. But this poor sap had taken a direct hit from a lightning strike, and it blew out him into his bud and then out his foot is what happened. This guy was more worse than that guy. So we picked them both up. We did it one at a time, sent a PJ down. They got him on the hoist and brought him up. And then there was a road like 4 miles away. We just flew down, and there was a waiting ambulance, just did a transload to the ambulance, and then went back up and got the other guy, and then took him to the ambulance. And then, that was pretty crazy. The craziest part of it was it was real windy, and we were going to get gas in Safford, which is a little airport there by Wilcox, Arizona. And Skinny's like, we're fine. So we get going, and we had an 80-knot headwind.
Oh my good Lord.
Some of the stuff. It was taking us forever to get back to Tucson. And we crest over the Reddington Mountains there, and the base is still across the town a ways. And we are flying where there was like green patches, because before we landed,
you got the flickering fuel lights again.
The low fuel lights, which I'd never got since, except in the time I was telling you earlier. I knew we were going to get a coffin engine or something, and then we come in for a roll-on landing because, just in case we coughed it on short final. And anyways, we didn't. But yeah, that was stupid. That was 100% stupid. Never pass up gas.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, you guys were up in the mountains on that one. Did you because you said it was really windy, did you end up having a lot of downdrafts on that as well, just based on where you're at, or updrafts?
Yeah, because we were on the downwind side, so we had to tuck ourselves down, and a lot of that turbs was going over us, but it did make for a kind of a bumpy hoist. That thing starts swinging, especially at 150 feet.
Yeah. Well, and part of the reason I asked that is because I know, I've talked to the Arizona DPS guys, and they've actually had to go in and totally call off a rescue based on the winds coming on that downdraft on the opposite side. I would, there's a lot of talk about that. So yeah,
exactly.
So, wow. No, I'm glad you guys pulled that off. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Jeez. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. Attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at readyswimmer.com or through therealresq.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready? All right, so you have a rescue out of Florida.
Oh, yeah.
So before you went and pulled people off a mountain, you did something in Florida. What?
Yeah, so we were flying out to the gun range out in the center of the state, and somebody on the ground, I guess, take their shirt off and was waving it. That's the only way we would have seen him. You'd think, and as a helicopter guy, you think you can see people and this and that. I mean, dude, they're waving an orange banner and you can't even see it. That's the hardest thing, is keeping eyes on. And it caught our flight engineer's eyes, so that was brilliant. He said, come right. We went and did a landing in this mushy field next to these rivers in the state. They're these winding rivers. And there was a airboat accident. These guys are hauling on these airboats, and they come around a corner and they had a head on. And these guys aren't really even strapped in. And there's these big metal superstructures, and they were giving people rides. One lady got really hurt. She was big, and it hit her. And I remember seeing her, it opened up some of her abdomen area. So we're like, oh crap. So we call back to our ops center and get our boss, the colonel, on the phone or the line. And we can't just, because we're military, we can't, it's apples and oranges unless we're tasked. But he's like, let's work it concurrently, because she's going to die if you don't help her. because there's no way they're have to go down this river for who knows how long just to get to a road.
Yeah.
So we load her on and coordinate with the local hospital while he's coordinating with the RCC to get it approved. And I remember they cleared out a Wendy's parking lot.
No way.
Yeah. And there was wires and stuff because, normally we don't land around there, but, so we're having to come in fairly steep because of the wires. And they had an ambulance waiting there because they had a helipad, but it wasn't rated for a 60. So we landed just a quarter mile down the road at the Wendy's. But yeah, that was kind of a crazy.
You run in, get a couple burgers on the way back to the training.
Exactly.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And that's off. It's not very often that happens. Even like in my world, like Coast Guard world, it was very rarely that you would see something. You would be launched on something. A handful of stories of like somebody's waving something and you're like, oh, let's check it out. And it just so happens they're in distress, but we can just take them. Oh yeah, get on, let's go. Yeah. You guys have to go through steps and procedures. Yeah. Wow.
Crazy.
I'm going to bring you back to Tucson. So you actually have like some, midair collisions of military aircrafts with guys that have to punch out, and you guys, so you're on call there to go get them. Is that right?
Yeah, we've at all our bases, if they're around things. So in Tucson, we've had midairs where we have to go pick up guys, or they have had to eject out of an F-16. Sometimes we've even had to go. It wasn't me, but our unit to go and pick up. Take out the investigation team, pick up parts and pieces. And one was on the Indian reservation, and they said, oh, this is sacred ground. And we had to take the dirt away and haul in new dirt where the crash site was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. For real? Yeah, like, what? Is one like a bucket or what?
Yeah. For reals, yeah. It was kind of silly.
Oh, you gotta give me a little more detail than just that. Come on, Spanky.
I don't want to downplay it, but it's in the middle of nowhere, just desert, but ugly dirt and scrub cactus crap. But it was technically on the res, and they mandated that we haul the dirt out and haul in new dirt. So, yeah, it took a few days. But up in Nellis,
how did you do that?
Yeah, we just kind of just sling load in because we got a sling load. We can do up to 6,000.
Bambi bucket style, or like
kind of like a Bambi bucket, but with dirt, and but it was on the cargo load, and we just haul it in. Yeah, crazy.
Oh, that's wild.
But up at Nellis,
we do.
Yeah, exactly. Up at Nellis in Vegas, when I was there, I was up at a couple different units there, and there was opportunities because there's a ton of fighters flying up in the Nellis Range complex, and they would either have midairs or have to jump out for whatever reason, and we would be close and go get them. So
wow,
yeah.
When you guys, so you're sending PJs out to go pick the pilots up, is that right?
Yeah.
So one of my friends that I think of in particular, Dave Beecham, ended up going down to an aircraft that flew into the ground, and they weren't like, he was around the aircraft, and then when they got pulled away from the aircraft, it was like stripped down naked, like power hosing them on the ramp because of whatever was in the aircraft. Do they have to go through that too?
Well, they have, depending on the type of aircraft and the materials. One of the big things with F-16s is hydrazine. If they've popped their thing, or that's like the fire suppressant. Other types of aircraft, especially the newer ones, if they're on fire with the different types of RAM or stealth capabilities, like on the newer fighters, that's very caustic. So you got to watch what you're doing.
Wow. Wow.
One of the midairs, you'll like this. Well, not really, but it was an A-10 midair. It wasn't me. It was Mike Flake, the one I was telling you about, that has been here forever down in southern Arizona. 2 A-10s midaired out east of Tucson towards the New Mexico border. And and they only have single seats. So the instructor's instructing the student in the other aircraft. The student actually makes it home back to DM. The instructor had to jump out. But
Wow.
as instructors at schoolhouses, because at Davis-Monthan is where they train A-10 pilots, just like a pilot training, whatever, you can double turn. So he's got one student, goes out, comes back, gets gas, goes back out with another student, gets hot gas and stuff. And when you strap into fighters with the ejection seat, it's just like a harness that you wear skydiving. You know, it's right through the crotch area and stuff. And you hook yourself into the seat, and then that's all part. And then you strap into your harness as you get strapped into the bird.
Yep.
Well, he took his harnesses off of his legs because it's pinching at his growing area, you know. And they do that, I hear a lot, during hot gas, but he didn't put them back on. And he had to eject, and he ejects. And then the seat man separation, and he just went just right out of his harness. And so he's now probably going, that was stupid. And anyway, so they didn't know any of this. They go out there and they see the burning hole. The plane's on fire. They actually find the seat and the chute, but they couldn't find him. And they thought, well, that's kind of weird. And they thought, oh, he's probably, you know, unbuckled and he's trying to find a rancher or something to get a ride into town. And then they find him. And he's like 8 feet away from a 1.5 foot depression in the ground. So he had bounced. I'm getting a little graphic, but this is what the PJ said.
That's okay.
So then they were trying to get him. Mike Flake was out there with the PJs. Actually had a flight doc out there helping. And to get him in the body bag, they couldn't lift him because it was just, he was obliterated. So they just had to roll him into the body bag.
Oh, no.
So that one sticks with me because I just feel sorry for the dude, you know, like thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, they see a lot of crap. And I'm up front. In Afghanistan, they're holding IV bottles. There's guys' legs blown off. They're helping with equipment. The guys in the back, they do a lot. We're pretty sterile up front. I mean, we can kind of turn around, but not really. It's the guys in the back see a lot of that crap. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's too bad for the pilot. That's not the way you think about going, especially with something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, you brought up Afghanistan. I know you said you did 3 deployments, and the end of your first one was Marcus Luttrell. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine it would be anything quite that extravagant, but is there anything else that stands out with you? With any rescues that you
went back in 2007. Kind of a quieter deployment, but we were more embedded with the Army. A little busier, primarily with Afghan National ANA, Afghan National Army, or Afghan National Police, locals. We would see like Dutch Special Forces, a lot of NATO guys, our Special Force guys, Army guys that get blown up with IEDs. We'd help out. But our busiest deployment was the next year in 2008, where the CENTCOM commander had said the golden hour, and he was pushing hard to get soldiers and airmen back to the hospital within an hour. And to make that happen, they just had to get more people out there. So what we had done, and we got a little creative, which it was one of our funner deployments, is they split our 2-ship up into 2 different locations, and our chase aircraft, or our gun bird, if you will, was an Apache helicopter from the Army. So we had an Apache on our wing, and just like with the AC-130, I'll take an Apache any day because they can reach out. They got missiles and rockets and big guns. You know, we got our little cap out the side. So we would do a lot.
Your cap gun is like a 50 cal, by the way.
Yeah, we got 50 cals, but
like,
even that 20 and 30 millimeters a little bigger.
True, very true.
Reaches out and says hello a little stronger. But yeah, so we would some of the things I remember, Dutch special forces that were pinned down. That was a pretty hot area. The Dutch again hit an IED, and we had to pick up. This was an interesting one. There was survivors, and we took them first, but then they were just devastated. Said, "Could you please come back and get our guy?" And this was a lieutenant that was the equivalent of the Secretary of Defense's son. And they were just devastated in the Netherlands. Yeah. They had a C-17 there within 12 hours, and he was back in the Netherlands within 24 hours of us picking him up. We hooked him up big time on that.
Wow.
But, yeah. And I've talked to my friends that live in the Netherlands. They're like, oh, yeah, that was a big deal when we heard about whatever his name is, son dying in Afghanistan. We would pick up locals. I remember one that stuck out with me because you have to realize you get a little, how do I say it nicely? The people over there are good people, but a lot of them aren't good people.
Gotcha.
And they do not treat their women well. And we had this one that really sticks out that it was probably her grandpa came out to the helicopter because we couldn't just take a kid by themselves. The kid was only two years old, maybe 18 months, 2 years. And she had 3rd-degree burns. But it was perfectly a line around her body and down her legs that she had been put in scalding, dipped in some kind of water or something. It was probably that idiot that we're flying in the back of this freaking helicopter. And she had just bad burns, and we took her in. But, you know, there was just a lot of things like that you're just, it's just a different world over there, you know?
Yeah.
No desire to go visit on any vacation. I'll stay with the.
You've had your time over here. We'll call it good.
Yeah, call it good. But yeah, we did a lot of other crazy, hairy missions. The Luttrell one was a big one because it was a combined, concerted effort with Navy, Army, us, and it was a pre-planned mission. But other things we did, and hot LZs and different things. It's just they just didn't write a book about it and make a movie on it, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, my hat's off. I have not personally ever been in any combat zone. I've not been shot at. And so my ultimate respect for you guys that go do that. All the CSAR boys, all your crews, PJs, pilots, and your door gunners from your Vietnam era to your 20-year-old.
Yeah. It's God's mission, dude. We love it. And we hold it high. It was a wonderful career. I'm so glad I chose it. You know, I do miss it. You know, you miss the guys, you miss the adrenaline, but you know, I'm letting the kids do it now. We got us a new helicopter, the whiskey, and so
nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Spanky, thank you so much for coming on and joining me. I am going to ask you one more question before I let you go, and it's kind of simple and it's kind of a tough one, and that is if you had a piece of advice with all of your experience and everything you've been through that you could pass on to everybody else that's doing the job right now, what would that be?
I would take advantage of every opportunity to train. We would train in the worst brownout scenarios just outside of town. We would fly on scary dark nights when it would be easier just to say, screw it, let's wait till the moon comes up in a few days. But train hard. So when called on, it was second nature. It was instinctual, if you will. And I think that saves our lives. Conversely, training that hard, you lose people. So it's tough. I've lost buds training. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but that's what came to my mind is train so you can come back and see your kids graduate from college when they were just 4-year-olds,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, my oldest is 30. Sheesh. I'm getting old.
Wow. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're at your peak.
Yeah, he was like in 5th grade, I think, when I went or something. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Spanky, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Wonderful piece of advice. Thank you for sharing all the stories and recapping again the story of Marcus Luttrell and what you guys did to go get him. Absolutely incredible. I'm honored to have you on here. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you reaching out.
Heck yeah. And when I get down to Tucson, I'm going to call you for like a beer or shot of whiskey or something. All right.
Give me a call. All
right. I love it. Well, thanks again, my friend. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
Go.
Now it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at The Real ResQ. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Axnis. The Axnis PNG wireless ICS system delivers cutting-edge wireless ICS technology to any aircraft. As a fully integrated system or as a carry-on, carry-off mobile base station, the PNG wireless system is the right solution for any mission.
Attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at readyswimmer.com or through therealresq.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready? And therealresqstore.com, your shop for all your podcast-worthy gear. From comfortable shirts to cozy mugs, we've got everything to showcase your love for your favorite podcast. So what are you waiting for? Head to therealresqstore.com and let your gear do the talking. Okay, Spanky, with all your training and stuff that you just talked about a minute ago, do you have a funny story that stands out to you?
As I said about helicopters, they're so versatile. You can do a lot of things. We call them leak checks when you got to take a piss. And we just across country and we just land anywhere. Try to land away from somewhere so we don't get in trouble. But you can do it. And sometimes, as you know, you get caught out there and you got to do more than just piss, And sometimes it's there's a couple things that stick out to me. One time we were air refueling at night and I'm in the back waiting to swap out with the student that was up front just to get recurrent. And he could not hit the drogue on the C-130, to air refuel. And we just would go up and down the track, and I am going to crap my pants. And anyways, finally, I said, hey, listen, we need to land. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all because I had my vest on, my survival vest and my flight suit trying to get out, and then it went. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, dude. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And it was so
no.
that I had to take my socks off. I even used my knife that I can cut my seatbelt off if I need to. I cut my pant
Your
leg
J-hook?
off.
Your little J-hook knife?
J-hook, and I cut my leg of my flight suit off. And I'm over there, and they're like, "Hey, Spanky, are you all right?" Because I was down the hill a little bit, and it was, I don't want to go into graphic detail, but it was bad. And yeah, enough to say I didn't go up front. We canceled the sortie, and we went straight back to the base after that. So
Oh, my
I don't know why I
goodness.
shared that with you. Not good.
Because that is an epic, funny story, and I love it.
It wasn't fun at the time. Because I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm not even by a road. I'm not even by cars. I'm in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. And yeah, I improvised. But man, not good. Not good.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
You bet.
That's fantastic.
You bet.
Right on. Oh, gosh. Okay. Hold on after I'm done crying now.